Welcome back to the Work Podcast. I am your co-host, Brittany Simone Anderson, and today we have a fantastic episode to share with you. This episode is supported by the class, and included in the show notes is a 30-day trial for the class. If you haven't taken it already, the class is a cathartic workout experience that guides you to strengthen the body and notice the mind to restore balance. The class has been a crucial part of my life and my emotional growth, especially during the pandemic. Speaking of the class, today we have the honor of chatting with Saraya Wilson. Soeuraya is a powerful force to be reckoned with, and in this episode, we get into the nitty-gritty of Soeuraya's stand against the white supremacist biases within the wellness and fitness industries. She tells us what it's like to work for a company that gets it wrong while profiting from the very people they choose not to support, and what it's like to be with a company that listens and changes and gets it right, why we shouldn't cancel people, and how we can call each other forward and call each other in to create diverse and equitable futures for each other. Soeuraya's class itself is returning to the self. You'll move through resistance, create contraction, and feel the release and expression as you engage in dialogue with your body and mind. The music is your guide and the movement is your meditation. She hopes you leave feeling powerful, grounded, and tied to your purpose, while strength in your body and discernment in your heart. Check out her experiences on the class, check out her Instagram, check out Soeuraya, because she is just an inspiring force that gets you to check in with yourself, notice your power, feel your power, and choose to create change with that power. This conversation is so exciting, so powerful, so inspiring, and I am so proud to present it to you. Without further ado, welcome, Soeuraya. Hi, beautiful beings. Welcome.
Hey.
Hi, Soeuraya. It is an honor and a pleasure to be with you today. And what a gift. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I feel the same. I'm like, wow, I get to sit in space and have honest conversation and yeah, I'm like, let's do it. I'm so excited.
Oh, what a pleasure. And so I'm just going to hop into it because you have so much to say and we have so many things to ask you, and you have just a wealth of wisdom. So I'm not going to even waste time. I want to ask you about who you are and where you come from, and what that's like moving through a world that is so steeped in white supremacy, and how that's affected this magnificent creature we see before us today.
Thank you. When I read your email, I just like going over some of the questions. I was like, oh, these girls are not here to play. They are like here to fucking talk. So I'm not gonna lie. I was like, oh God, I got a little sweaty. Like I'm a little nervous, but this is this space, right? And again, just thank you so much for like recognizing that in me and inviting me on. And I mean, who am I? I'm a teacher. I am a human, a woman, an inspirer. I was born in Arizona, grew up in New York. I now live in Miami. I am half Black, half Chinese, half Haitian, half Chinese. My dad was born in Hong Kong. My mom was born and raised in Haiti, moved to the States when she was 13. And no, that's not specifically about me, but we are so much of our history, right? We are so much of our lineage. So yeah, I mean, so much of who I am comes from them. And now I am logistically in this tangible world, I'm a teacher of the class, which is a cathartic movement practice, which hopefully will bring you to tools throughout. And within that will just help you balance and bring back into alignment. So that's what I do full time. I also work on their corporate team, helping train teachers and develop existing teachers. I also produce a podcast for them. I sit in a million different rooms. So yeah, like small human, many, many different things.
The universe works in such mysterious ways, because I was telling Britt that your face looks so familiar to me. And I said, I think I've taken one of her SoulCycle classes like back in the day. And, SoulCycle is like such a distant memory. It's something that I was so involved in for 10 years when I lived in New York City, and it's not a part of my life anymore. So it was like Mercury retrograde, here we are. And it and then I found out that you were a teacher. So I'm just curious, how did you start your journey in fitness? Because I know for a lot of people who start their wellness and spiritual path, it is a pathway to awakening. So how did you get into this journey?
Um, wow. If you were to ask anyone that knew me 10 years ago, they'd be like, that bitch, she's in fitness. She rides a bike for 45 minutes. I was a nomad. I grew up performing. So I grew up in the acting world. I was an actor, singer, dancer. I went to performing arts high school. And that always just kind of seemed, I was like, that's what I'm going to do. I didn't go to college. I stayed in New York. Bartending and auditioning and smoking half a pack a day and drinking till 5 a.m. and going to yoga every once in a while and being like, I got my thing in, you know what I mean? I feel spiritual, I feel whole. And then just going about and doing my life again. And an old mentor agent of mine, I was working with an agency, and she left and started to do recruiting for SoulCycle for teachers. And basically I would get a call from her every day pretty much, and was just like, I have a job for you. Like, I have a job that I can actually guarantee that you'll have and you will love it, and it will pay you and like give you the means to actually do what you want to do, which at the time was to be in an episodic television show. Like, if you were to book me in Grey's Anatomy, I'd be like, that was what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And was super resistant because, again, I didn't come from fitness. I was very intimidated by everything that it seemed it came with. And just got to kind of a tough spot after like a month and a half of getting phone calls from her. I was just like, okay, I'm willing to try. Like, I'm tired of, the jig is up. I'm tired of bartending. I'm tired of late nights. Like, I'm tired. Let me just see what it's about. So I tried a class, and I mean, like so many do, if you've been to SoulCycle, it just was like kind of mind blowing. Yeah. I was like, whoa, this feels really good. And everyone's into it, and not just pretending, but like they're actually into it. And our teacher, Marvin, I fell in love with him, and that kind of began my fitness journey. I just became very committed to not, and again, it was like, the gym world didn't necessarily speak to me. It was like this experience that I was experiencing in that room specifically. So that started my teaching with them. I moved to Florida, South Florida, the end of 2014, and opened their markets here. So Coral Gables and South Beach and Brickell. And again, the whole time it was like, okay, I'm going to do this now. And then I'm going to go back to acting. And it just like continued. It was just like the doors kept opening, and I really found a love for teaching. Like, I really feel like I found my purpose in life. And tried the class somewhere in between there, and made it back to New York for work with Soul in 2018, and started teaching for the class part-time. And that, like, in terms of, I love what you said, like the fitness, right? That like that journey has such a way of opening up to awareness, like an awakening. And there was definitely an experience and like this enlightenment that was happening at SoulCycle, but it really like clicked and became clear and just went into a further direction for me when I started teaching with the class. Yeah. So long story long, that's kind of how I ran into that.
That's such a beautiful beginning, and an entryway into something that really, I imagine, I don't know if you know, shapes a lot of lives. And if anyone else participated in Soraya's, am I saying your name right? You said your name at the beginning, and I think I totally just butchered it. Soeuraya. I'm so sorry. I've heard you say your name a million times. Okay, and I will not forget that. But forgive me, Soeuraya. So I took your classes during the pandemic, the pandemonium, as Laura calls it, and it was really you were my saving grace. I mean, you were my lifeline, because we were in this house. There were 5 of us, and it was beautiful, but there was so much chaos and there was so much stress outside of those walls. So the class for me was incredibly cathartic, and you specifically, your voice and you kept us sane. So I want to thank you for that. All the things that brought you to this moment have been super helpful for not just me, but for so many people.
Thank you. And that, continuing to hear that, I'm like, I thank you, I really do. I think once I got out of that idea that fitness or the idea of taking care of yourself in that way was a solo initiative, and it can be, right? And I think sometimes it is important to go in. And I say that I'm like moving my hands into my heart, because it's like we do need to go into ourselves sometimes. But man, I loved group fitness. That is my jam. Like that is what I really, really feel passionate about, because there's just something so beautiful and I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it, like an energy that is undeniable when you're just moving in a space with multiple bodies that are also there with the intention to move,
And that was what was so special about SoulCycle, because it's SoulCycle. It was about connecting at an energetic level. At least this is how I felt about it. And it was all of us moving at the same beat in the same room where it was dark, and there was a teacher who helped you to go forward and kept you motivated and said really motivating things. And it was very much about community. And so then when some of the darkness started coming out, I would say it was always there, right? When it was taken over by a larger entity that I don't know if I'm going to name. That it was really disappointing. And I think it hurt a lot of the community, specifically in New York, because it was born on 72nd Street. I remember the first studio. And just the way in which it kind of like crumbled. I mean, it's still around, but the essence of it was definitely not there anymore. So I just want to hear about your experience and transitioning and all of the things that you went through.
Yeah. It's, it's hard. I think I've really spoken openly about my departure and my experience there, like maybe once. So thank you for like allowing like a safe space for me to feel comfortable in sharing. I really appreciate that. And, it's sad. It's still sad for me. I think it came at a time, I think, when it needed to, but it also came at a time where there was a lot of, like you said, right? It's like chaotic, right? It was like, there was so much shit going on. And, my intention, like, I feel like that statement really got caught up in this like cancel culture kind of narrative. And, I'll say it now, my intention was not to cancel out. Like I love that company and really attribute to who I became as a teacher, how I evolved, me finding my passion in life. Like I would not have done that without Hallie, my mentor, without Julie and Elizabeth, like without so many of the peers and mentors that I had in that company. But like you said, there was a bigger entity that came on. And I think with everyone just trying to like stay afloat in that pool, in that world that we now found ourselves in, the main thing, it's like we all live most of us listening to this, right, will live in the US, and we are mainly driven by capitalism. So it's like money starts to just kind of get thrown around, and you really see, I don't think I really understood how capitalism, how much it drives our world and the way that we exist, until I really saw the demise of the company from my eyes and towards the end of my journey there. And yeah, I mean, I think I would be lying if I said that there weren't moments that I really loved it and thrived there and learned so much about myself. But, you know, like you said, there was always kind of this, there was always kind of a darkness, you know, there was always kind of a like, yeah, you're showing up and it's good, but we need you to do better. And yeah, you're beautiful and we're going to put you in this photo shoot, but this isn't empowerment. And how dare you ask for any kind of credit or any kind of compensation? Like there were just a lot of things that it was very contradictory, you know, it was very contradictory. And I think, you know, coming out of it, like seeing it from kind of this third eye perspective now, or this like out of body onlooker, I like, you know, I was just kind of like placating myself. It was very much just like, it's okay. It's okay. They love you. Everything's going to be okay. Very like Stockholm syndrome-esque, you know, and just like making peace with the devil. And pandemic happened, right? Our world as we know it shut down. And I think we all are kind of know a little bit of what happened at that point. But I mean, there was a complete lack of care from the company, and not just for any, like all of their employees, but I think especially the employees that they as a company were relying on to keep them afloat and to like keep their studios full. And, you know, the people that really helped them make the brand to what it was, there just really was a lack of care. And one of my best friends, I'll call him D. I was like, should I say his name? I'm not going to say his name, but call him D. We really came to a point where we were like, you know what, we need to like do something. So he put together a petition, and, you know, I came alongside him and we really tried to get it out to our community and to other employees, and just like something needs to happen, and something needs to happen within the company. Something needs to happen outside of the company. Like at that time too, the Black Lives Matter resurgence was like alive and well, and it is still alive. I want it to be more well. I feel like we are, I mean, it is on the back burner right now, which we can talk about eventually. But, you know, it was like, there wasn't anything happening on their ends in that part either. And for me, again, it was like, I'm half Black. I see a lot of my peers there are Black, are people of color, are Black women and men. And it just was like, where are you? Where are you? And everything was just met with we hear you and we're working on it. We hear you and we're trying. We hear you. And like, I mean, frankly, I stopped feeling heard, you know, And I resigned from the company about a week and a half before I had posted on social media that I left. And, you know, there were conversations that happened beforehand, but there wasn't anything. Like, I was very vocal, like, I'm leaving this company because it doesn't feel like you care. I am on 3 billboards in Vegas. I'm on a billboard here. I'm on a billboard there. I sell out all my classes. I can't pay my rent right now. I need help. And again, it was just like, there's no help. There was no help. And yeah, so I left, and it felt like they didn't really hear that, you know, it felt like they didn't really hear like, yes, it's me, but I really felt like I was advocating for other peers and other people that weren't really, didn't feel comfortable speaking up for whatever reasons. And yeah, that I think for me was kind of when I made the choice. I was also just getting a lot of questions of like, do you work for the company? Do you not? Are you going to start teaching for them? We were starting to like go back into filming for our, for our digital project. And yeah, there was a lot of just like separation between that. And I was like, okay, this is how do we do it these days? This is how we do it. You know, you use this forum that you have. Yeah. So that was kind of my experience there. And that was like a really pivotal point for me in a lot of ways. That was really when I like, I had a social media following, but I'd never really, I guess, understood or took into account how powerful this platform is. And man, there's so many, right? I hate that word influencer. I call myself the accidental influencer because I like, again, it just fell upon me. And in this very pivotal moment, it was like, oh shit, you have something to say and people are listening and it's important. And you're saying things that people are obviously all feeling, right? It's like you're feeling it and you're willing to say it. And now people are coming and also being like, thank you for saying that. I've been feeling that for years or months or whatever. Mm-hmm. So yeah, very pivotal moment for me. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that so vulnerably and getting us to understand too, like that it's not just about the company and even you, it's also the responsibility comes onto the consumer because we live in a capitalist society and we give money to these companies. So I think you gave voice to something that was going on, but in you speaking out about it, then the consumer has a choice if they want to support that company or not. And I just witnessed like a huge like mass exodus of SoulCycle teachers during that time, especially the ones that I followed and loved. And I would have these private conversations with them and they would share what was going on. And I was like, there's no way I'm giving my money to that company. What in the
Totally.
Not gonna say number 45's name. I do not speak, which I do not want to experience, but I was like, what the heck? So thank you for sharing that.
Of course. And like that was really, that's something I learned, right? I think it's really easy for us to get lost in a mindset of like, well, I'm not going to do anything because it feels like anything I do doesn't matter. And at this point that we are in this just society and life, all of it matters. Like every little thing matters. So, you as a consumer choosing to go work out elsewhere by spending your money in this place or not spending your money in another place, like that is our way to protest, that is our way, by having the conversations, like simply even like going to certain restaurants, like who your friends are, like that is the protest, it's like our world, how we live. And I like want so badly for people to feel that, in their own communities, because we're all experiencing each other. It's like we're all, right? We all see each other, whether we want to say so or not.
I just really miss the Le Labo shower gels.
Girl, yes.
I'm sorry.
Talk about the
go there.
So much so that I have them. I'm like, I now spray Lila. I like have it all in my bathroom. I'm like, no, I won't go there anymore, but I can make it appear in my home.
What is Le Labo for the rest of us who have no idea?
Oh my gosh. It's this beautiful like perfumery in Nolita, and SoulCycle had its own shower gels and shampoo and conditioner in all of the SoulCycles. And I remember just going to SoulCycle and being like, I'm so rich and abundant right now. I'm like taking a shower after my $34 class and I smell like Le Labo, and it's a very distinct smell from New York City.
It's grapefruit. It's like grapefruit, but softer. And I mean, the whole experience. I love what you just said, Laura. You're like, I am rich and abundant and I'm showering and I'm soaking it all in. That's totally what it felt like.
You felt like you were a rich bitch.
Well, it's so interesting that that's what the consumer and that's what the client feels But those who are really working and sweating and giving you their all don't necessarily feel that way. And you think about the numbers of people that show up for these classes, hour after hour, location by location. And I worked for the same parent company. So I understand that sense of luxury that is felt and how teachers are expected to show up. And that, yeah, you can't pay your rent because what you are paid and things that people who go there never think about because they're spending so much money there. How could you not pay your teachers, effectively? And not give them the tiniest little raise that we'd fight for every 6 months or to a year, and it's interesting how things really are in that world. But you work for someone else now.
I do.
Someone that who I really love and admire. I want you to, if you're comfortable with it, speak to the class because they got called out. And they got called out. And in my opinion, from what I've seen, and I've worked with the class too separately, but they've really stepped up. So I would love for you to speak to your experiences, what you've seen, what you feel.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the class. I love the company that I work for now. So much. Like I am a workaholic and I can't even explain to people. They're like, you work so much. And I'm like, I know, and I love it. It's like, it's fucked up. We have gone through a lot. I mean, as everyone has, but I think as a brand, as a company, we have, and I'm so like admiring of them. And I think a lot more companies need to take this approach where they are just willing to listen, right? It was like the class on a whole took several months when all of the real like resistance and contradiction was happening. They took several months to really just listen to, the people who were messaging us and saying that they were no longer going to come because they saw such a discrepancy in what we preach, right? And what was actually happening. We listened to employees. At the time, there were 2 BIPOC employees, and it was myself and CJ Frogozo, who was there years before I was. Listened. They just listened. And from there, then we're really willing to make just like hard decisions. And were they financially like beneficial to the company? No, probably not. And I'm not on the finance side. Like I can't speak to that accurately, but we've taken a lot of steps and made a lot of decisions where our original, marketing speak a little bit here, but it's like our original customer is just no longer willing to be our original customer anymore because it has changed so much from what the original brand was. At the same time, we are now making space and inviting room for others to come in, whether that is a Black female or a Black male, whether that is lesbian, LGBTQ, whether that's anyone that identifies as other, so to speak. I think there was a time where they did not feel safe coming to the class. And that's just our mission now, right? It's like we have our original customer. Our mission is to make space for the other. And I firmly believe, when I came into the class, I experienced it first and had 2 classes where I was like, I don't understand how I'm sobbing my eyes out and doing jumping jacks and like full sound, full cry in a space where everyone else is also in this like full emotion. And at the end, there's just peace, right? It's like, I think in the childhood that I had, it was always like really big emotion came with really big chaos. And this was what it was all the time. There was never a just like, no, we release the emotion because what comes after is like, is a settle, is a peace. And I experienced that for the first time at the class. And I think so much of our communities that don't have the financial abilities to pay $34 or $35, that don't live in Tribeca, that don't live in the spaces where we originally used to offer it. It's like, they are the ones that need to experience this practice, you know? Oh my God, inner city schools, prisons, like this medicine that comes in this method, by you simply just being able to return to yourself and know that you are okay with whatever is happening in there. It's just a matter of being able to see it and talk to it, you know? They all need that. So I think we're just now in this place where we're like, okay, we are very much in recognition. We see it. We're listening, we're going to take action, and then we're going to do that again and again and again until it feels like we are in a space that feels like we're getting it right. And I say right in quotations because I think I don't know if that's the right word to use right now, but
yeah.
You know, until all communities or most communities feel safe coming to us. And then that's when that work will really stop, you know. But yeah, I think it's an ongoing journey, and a lot of my coming in, you know, to the company, especially when I did, there was a lot of like, I got a lot of pushback. You're leaving one racist company to go work for another racist company, like, easy for you to leave this place when you're going to accept a full-time offer somewhere else. Like, there was a lot of pushback, and the difference there was I did feel heard, right? It was like coming from a company where I'm like screaming, like crying, hear me. I'm like, I am begging you for help. I'm begging you to just listen. And to have like a door slammed in my face again and again to someone that was like, I hear you, and I don't necessarily know how, but let's sit and let's talk, and I'm sorry, and I hear you, and let's move forward from there. So that was really the difference. And again, they just continue to move in a direction that's like, we're going to continue, you know, we're going to continue. Oh, we've hit a wall again. It feels like there hasn't been growth, or it feels like we're at a standstill. Let's sit. We need to sit. We need to talk. We need to have the conversations, and then we need to move forward again with whatever that looks like.
You know, it's so important to not cancel people. It's really important to not cancel people or companies, but to give space for growth, and give space for expansion. And at the same time, one can walk away and say, this organization is not for me, right? We can walk away from a different company and say, this one's not for me. But you said a lot in there that I really felt and that resonated with me. With a company that is expanding and creating space for other, what does that look like for people who are like differently bodied, and can the class eventually create space and take up space, I guess, in our prison industrial complex to give aid or release to? I mean, do you see it going in that direction?
I'm hopeful, you know. I mean, and I think there's two conversations there, right? I think we are actively always in thought and just conversation of how do we create different collections for someone that is, you know, that is different in body, that maybe doesn't have use of their legs, or maybe doesn't have use of their arms, right? Different scales and physicality in that way. We're currently working on different chair classes, right? Different chair collections. And then in terms of like the you know, the prison system and stuff like that, yes, like all of these are, again, like conversations that we have. I think it's, you know, it's so, and again, I'm new to the corporate world. So like me even having this conversation right now, I'm like, holy shit. I'm like, do you even know what you're talking about? But I'm learning, right? And it's so interesting because that is a real thing. Like a business, in order for a business to be a business, right, it has to bring in revenue, and the revenue allows the business to grow even more. And in order to create the revenue, there have to be certain systems and practices in place. How do you do that? It's like brand identification. How do you maintain a brand? Like all of these things go into it. So, I think there's definitely meetings we've had where like our COO and people at the top are like, yeah, I wish we didn't have the investors and all the things, and we could just be like, oh, fuck it. We're doing this, we're doing that, we're doing this. But it's hard, right? Because again, we do exist within these realms. So we can say fuck it. And in a way that like puts us further back, because now I very strongly think that we have to figure out a way to change the system while you're in it, right? If we're like in this space here, from here, how do we now like circle out from that? So again, we have the conversations. I think it's hopeful. And from where we are now, we're just trying to figure out what that looks like without completely collapsing where we've gotten to,
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that we're talking about this because during the time when the class was coming out, I lived in Tribeca and I went to the Tribeca studio, and the the intention to me back then was like it was catering to a very elite group of people, upper, not even like middle class. It was like the 1% of people, like the top gross income of New York City, of Manhattan. And it was definitely catered to like white, thin women. And
I
so,
mean, talk about products and bathrooms. It was like
yes,
Dior, it
yes,
was Dior products only.
yeah.
So
Yeah. And I don't know what I was doing in there. It's not like I was in these circles. I just happened to live there during my private equity years. But, um, and then, now you're talking about offering to different people and kind of widening the network. You're talking about prison and people who might not necessarily have access to this. So, I'm curious. I know you're not, Taryn Toomey, who's the creator of this class, but how do you do that identity shift? Like how, because then you also have to train a group of people to think like, oh, the class, it's not just about thin white women anymore. It's about everybody else. And like, how does that happen?
we're doing it now. And when we're at the end of that, we can have another podcast and I'll tell you. But right now it's like, again, it's a lot of talking and listening and like being willing to learn. I'm so grateful every day for the team that I'm manager of the teacher training and development team. So it's like I have a bunch of teachers underneath me, and I'm so honored and grateful that they are willing to listen and receive the information that I'm giving them. And I'm also so grateful for the people that are at the top, right? That are like, it's all trickle down. And that that ecosystem, we are all just very willing. And that's how it happens.
Mm-hmm.
It happens by us also asking for help and bringing in other facilitators and other, just like learn, I think a big thing for us at the class has been we brought in a, diversity and inclusion team that helped us really get into like the corporate structure and talk to us about hiring. And again, like these are all things too, like you said, like the studio used to come and it felt a certain way, like it's you can't use ignorance as an excuse now, but I think there was a lot of for lack of a better word, just like not knowing. There was a lot of ignorance there. And once the veil was kind of pulled back and revealed, there was a lot of just like, holy fuck, this is what we're saying. This is not the intention at all. And shame on us for not being able to like see that sooner or to step out of the blinders sooner, but we're doing it now. we're choosing that now. So, I mean, a lot of it when it comes to the training of the teachers is bringing in, like I said, asking for help, bringing in other facilitators, having trauma trainings from BIPOC, from other teachers that are not white teachers, that aren't just like your typical white teacher in the breath work space, like white teacher in the yoga space. Just again, a lot of like talking and learning and listening and being willing. And it's hard, again, I think these changes don't happen without some kind of loss, and I say loss because like it's hard, like everything does seem so political these days, and in a way, like I'm like figuring it out in my own head, right? It's like we've made everything so political, but like the truth is I really feel like it shouldn't be. You know what I mean? Like race and how I'm treated shouldn't be based on whether I'm a Republican or a Democrat or any of these things. And that's really like, I think, how we've come to see it. So at the class, the way we really see it is like it's not about political affiliation. It's not about any of those things. It's like, are you a human, and are you kind, and are you willing to, like, you're asking people to treat you a certain way, then how are you going to show up and treat these other humans? And we are a company that is all inclusive. We are a company that is trying to get to this place. And if you're not willing to go there with us, we love you and we miss you and we're sorry, but this is the direction we're going. So
bye.
Come on in, or we'll see you later.
Can't stay
Don't slam the door on the way out.
So with all the decolonizing work that the class is doing, talk to me about what decolonization means to you.
Yeah. I mean, decolonize, right? Like the word at its essence is to become independent of, right? To like shed the system and to separate yourself. And for me, like I kind of mentioned it earlier, but that just means like in all aspects. Like it's not just, okay, I'm going to go work at this place now, and then like what I do in my private life is my own business. Like all of these things and the energy, like if you've ever taken my class or you have spoken to me, like everything is energy for me, and you are being affected by people, and the way that you're being affected by people is now how you are going to affect someone else. And it seems exhausting at times, but I think once you get in a flow of it, you're feeling it and you're receiving it and you're aware of it. And by it, I mean energy. And so for me, like, I want to make it very clear how I feel and what I stand for and in all the time. I don't want there to be any kind of blurred lines or wishy-washiness. Like, I want you to know. And if it feels like you don't know, I very much want it to be in a space where people can talk to me about it. I've had so many like hard conversations with people I really love, because at the base of it, we remember that we love each other, right? It's like we remember that we are humans, and there is common ground here. We have to be able to talk about the hard things as well in that way. And since I left SoulCycle, I think it just became very like, this is just how you have to live your life now. There's no kind of like compartmentalizing. This just has to be it. So, when I think about decolonizing, when I think about what has to be done still, or what my part is in that, that's in my everyday. And it's hard, but that's just what it is, it's just what it is.
That's why I like your Instagram, because I open it up and I'm like, there it is. I know exactly what she's thinking, how she feels, and I'm like, I like this, because I'm an Aries. I'm like, just be with me. I know Brittany has to tone down my fire sometimes, which I need that from a Pisces. Like,
Oh
I
my
know
God.
exactly
Love
what I'm
it.
getting. I know exactly what she thinks.
Yes. Yes. And I'm a big advocate of like, you don't have to be an asshole while you do it, you know? You can be really nice. You can be really nice and still let people know this is where I stand.
Yeah.
And we can smile, and I'm going to smile, and I'm going to tell you there's definitely times where they don't deserve the smile anymore. And I got to get New York on your ass. But it's like, you don't have to be mean and like stand up for what you believe in, you know, at all.
I'm just curious, part of my decolonization last year when I couldn't go to any fitness classes was how much capitalism relies on us to not feel good about ourselves and constantly making us feel like we're not skinny enough, perfect enough. And I think a lot of these New York studios were thriving on women feeling like we weren't skinny enough, that we weren't having the six pack abs. And now, without having access to the studios per se for such a long time, do you believe that the fitness world can survive now post all of this awakening, however you feel you've awakened, without women feeling, like capitalistic, right? Like without women feeling like they're not good enough. Like can it thrive in both, you know, Mercury
Yeah.
retrograde? I don't know if I'm making sense.
I get it. I got you. I got you. You know, it's interesting. And I actually just facilitated a day retreat last 2 weekends ago with my sister and partner, Ash Rucker. I love her. If you don't know who she is, she runs a nonprofit called Therapart. And she basically goes to inner city schools. She is gathering youth that are just not at the same fiscal level or education level that society has deemed us supposed to be at. And she just infiltrates tools and helps give them space to like meditate and write and create and move their bodies and figure out what it means to feel feelings, right?
Mhm.
And to do that through the body, and how you can do that and still be okay. And so the subject of our retreat was wellness versus well-being. And what you just said, right? It's like the fitness industry is an industry of wellness, which is based on capitalism. It's based on, I have to have this mat and I can't go to that class if I'm not wearing this set and having those shoes. And if I don't want to post that I'm working out, if I go to the New York Sports Club, like it can only be if I'm going to the SoulCycle or the boutique fitness, whatever. And I don't think we're there yet. Like, I really think we're still like at the beginning of this conversation of what does that look like? Because I think we did see that we couldn't go to studios, right? But there was still this mass like, well, I'm going to subscribe to every single thing that I possibly can and pay all the subscription fees because God forbid I'm not trying and doing and doing and doing. And you're like, what? Like, why?
I know.
Does that feel good? Like take a minute, pause. Does that make me feel well in my being? Or am I just giving the illusion that I'm well because I've purchased all of the things and the supplements and things, right? So that was our conversation of maybe it's time to reimagine and redefine the tools that we have for ourselves and not think of it as this is my wellness routine, but I am a human being. So how can I be well in my being, right? And in being well, what does that look like? What does that look like? For me, it's not, oh my God, I actually can't even remember the last time I paid for a fitness class. And granted, I am a fitness teacher, I definitely take and benefit from all the amazing teachers around me, but we forget that we go to these classes. Yeah, go to the yoga class. great, get the membership, do the 30 days, you pay the $15. And then what's it like for you to go home and then now implement that practice for yourself, to teach yourself with what you've learned in your own hands? Yes, go to the class, learn about breath, learn about what's happening in your mind when it comes to neuroplasty. Like, buy the book that is going to give you more information, but then sit in that information and like be in it. Maybe you don't need to seek and seek and seek and seek and seek. So yeah, I want the world, I want the fitness world to be in a place where it doesn't feel like we are preying, so to speak, off of the physical lackness that seems to be where it comes from. It's joy. Like I think about SoulCycle. Like I think about some of my favorite classes, like it just was a feeling of pure joy. And then like I happened to be working out, right? Like I happened to be sweating at the same time. And that is what I think we need to get back to. Like, why did we go to yoga in the first place? Why did you like step into that space in the first place? Not to spend $1,000 on merch and the ball and thing and this,
or your lunch. I think that's why a lot of people, I used to do it, go into fitness to like burn off calories.
Yeah.
No, not anymore.
Not anymore. Yeah. Not in the punishment. I think that's something also we've learned in the last year is like, this shit is hard. This shit we call life is hard, and it is continuing to get harder, and there will be ebbs and flows, but there's no need to punish ourselves any more than we're already being punished, like I was journaling the other day, and there's this little like rhyme that we used to say in acting, and it was for articulation. But when you really think about the words that it was saying, whether the weather be warm, whether the weather be cold, we'll be together, whatever the weather, whether you like it or not, something like that. Mm-hmm. It's supposed to rhyme. That didn't rhyme, but I was saying that to myself, it's like we're with ourselves, whether it's hot, whether it's cold, like wherever we are, you are always with you. And we are so in this world of like taking care of me for you. I'm going to take care of me for you. I'm going to take care of my headspace because I don't want you to be offended by the words I say. I'm going to go to the therapist because what I did made you uncomfortable. And I'm not saying that any of these things are wrong. Like, fucking go to therapy. I think everybody needs to go to therapy, but we have to get back to the root of why we're doing these things and why we're going. And it really is self-care, self-love, the tending to you. You can't live with yourself. Like, how do you expect other people to live with you, and vice versa. So yeah, that's all I'll say.
Yeah.
Soeuraya, what is your message for the world?
Oh, man, I want people to live hard and love loud, I think we have all been through so much, not just in the last year and a half. Like I just said, like life is hard and long and short and like all of the things all at the same time. And we get so caught up. If we can just find like a moment to pause, just pause. If you do anything in the next 12 hours, just pause. Let it bring you some new perspective.
So beautiful. Well, we'll link everything in the show notes and how to take Soeuraya's class at the class.
Yeah, come find me.
All things Soeuraya. Wow,
no, I definitely want to take your class because I just want to hear you talk all day.
Right? Get ready to have your butt kicked because she doesn't come to play.
I'm ready.
Like we said, small human, big package. All right.
But thank you so much for your wisdom and your time and for just being a voice. Like your Instagram is so inspiring
Really
and
is.
just standing up for what's right. Right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.